Okay, आहोत आपण live. Okay, let's begin. Hello, everyone. A very warm welcome to all of you. Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon to you wherever you are in the world. Welcome to today's session about India's research infrastructure by Jnana Prabodhini Foundation, where we'll also be sharing our experiences of our recent attending at the G20 conference. So I'm going to give you a brief overview of what we'll be doing today. I'll start with a background of JPF and JPF Analytics. Then I'll give you a background about India's research infrastructure, some slides. This part of the session will be conducted mostly in English. Then we will move to the second half of the session, where we will have a more free forum. We'll begin with experience sharing by our team members who took part in the G20, and we'll conclude with an open discussion, a Q&A session. These last two segments will be a mixture of Marathi and English. They're meant to be free-flowing conversations, so there's no language barrier about that portion. Okay, so without further ado, let us begin. All of you will be familiar with Jnana Prabodhini in India. Though maybe not all of you are familiar with Jnana Prabodhini Foundation. Jnana Prabodhini Foundation was established in 2019 by the well-wishers and alumni of Jnana Prabodhini. It's headquartered in California. It's a 501c3 nonprofit. And currently we have more than 750 individuals involved in the network. More than 200 of them have been actively volunteering. And we have also been engaged in a lot of different fundraising efforts. And you can check out all of these in detail on our website. The three main pillars that Jnana Prabodhini Foundation supports, or its work does, is to support the work by Jnana Prabodhini and its other parent organizations in India. So we primarily focus on women's leadership development, on education, and rural development. And today's session and our Learn India campaign, which I'll tell you about in just a second, falls within our second pillar of education. We also have a bunch of ongoing projects with our different volunteers. So we have Prārthanā Setu, which provides career guidance to different, what we could say, hatke careers. We have a translation project. We have Bala Prabodhini, which tries to provide the values and exposure of Prabodhini to a younger age group. We have an initiative for biomedical biosciences, IBRETA, and we have JPF Analytics, which is the team that's organizing today's session. I should highlight our Learn India campaign, which is going on right now. We launched it during Guru Purnima, and among other things, it involves supporting the education of students from Manipur. Many of you may be following the happenings in Manipur from right now. You might be enraged, angry about it, and you might be thinking, what can I do to support what's going on? Well, one simple way of doing it is supporting the education of underprivileged children in India. And if you can donate $1 a day, as simple as $1 a day, you could support the education of one child for an entire year. And we have a goal of raising $75,000 this year. So please go out to our website and check out the details of this. As part of our Learn India campaign, not only do we cover the education of a child, but we also provide other mentorship and career guidance sessions. We promote skill-based training, and we also give them access to other vital educational infrastructure and like notebooks and other such requirements that we need. So please visit our website to check out more details about our Learn India campaign. That's one way that you can get involved in this, and we really need your help. So moving on to the focus of today's segment, though, where we'll be talking about India's research infrastructure and our participation as JPF at one of the recent G20 events. This Today's session and our participation at the G20 was spearheaded by JPF's analytics team. And JPF Analytics is a non-profit computational science platform engaged in research, analysis, and policy making to build a better future. And we'll be focusing today on the second bullet point of our vision, which involves strengthening research infrastructures. That's not the only thing that we are involved in or interested in, but that is the focus of today's session. We have done other things as well. So we have had 2 online webinars, which had IS Rubal Agarwal, who was the Additional Municipal Commissioner of Pune, as well as Dr. Raghunath Mashelkar as one of the chief guests. And very recently, we participated in a G20 side event, and we will be talking about that in detail today. So these are some of the things that we do at Jnana Prabodhini Foundation and as analytics team. And you can check out these webinars and other education and outreach sessions that we have had in the past on our YouTube channel. So if you're interested in think tanks or in data scraping or in computational social science, we have videos up there that you can go and check out and widely share so that people can be educated. But as we were mentioning that we are going to be focusing on our second bullet point of strengthening research infrastructures, I should mention, like, what do we exactly mean, right, by strengthening research infrastructures? So we're importantly, we are talking about 3 main things. We are talking about improved funding, improved collaboration, and improved quality. So I'll give you a brief overview of those real quick. So I should say that it's not just us who are advocating for increasing research, but increasing research and the quality of research, strengthening research infrastructures actually fits in with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So in particular, if you look at United Nations 9th Sustainable Development Goal, which involves building resilient infrastructure, promoting sustainable industrialization and innovation, they have a target 9.5, which is enhancing research and upgrading industrial technology. And they have very specific indicators for those factors. So one indicator of that is the amount of research and development spending that goes on. And you can see that India, like as a proportion of its GDP, does not probably spend as much as it could, or as much as some of the leading scientific research countries in the world do. Even in terms of bare numbers, right? Researchers per million inhabitants, India has a very large demographic. We are currently the largest population in the world, but even in terms of numbers of researchers per million, India has a lot of scope to improve. So these are a couple of specific targets or indicators that are looked at within this sustainable development goal. And there are some problems in the research infrastructure that we would want to point out. So one important aspect of why the research infrastructure isn't as strong as it could be is because just the amount of money is low. And it isn't the case that the government is not spending as much money as it could be. In fact, the government contribution to R&D is actually higher in India than many other countries, but it's really private businesses and industries which are not putting in as much as they could. And it's not just countries like in the first world that spend more than India, but there are other countries which are spending about as much or just a little bit more than India, which are comparable countries like Turkey, Morocco, the BRICS countries. So that's one aspect of the funding. Then there's also an aspect of collaboration, that there is not that much collaborations between the industry and academia in India. Oftentimes, there's not as many international collaborations as there could be. And many times the research that takes place occurs in silos. It is not interdisciplinary. Different people from different academic disciplines rarely work together to solve a problem. And finally, there's an aspect of quality, that it's not as if a lot of research is not being published, but often that research tends to be produced in what are called predatory journals that do not have rigorous peer review processes, that require the authors to pay for publication, that just do not adhere to the high level rigorous quality standards that are missing. So these are just some of the issues that are plaguing research in India, but we don't want to just paint a negative picture. So it's not as if, it's the end of the world. So now what do we do? Now that we know that these are these problems, what is being done to solve these problems, to tackle these problems? So in this next segment, we'll highlight some of the efforts that are being taken to address, to strengthen India's research infrastructure. Of course, we will not be able to highlight each and everything, but we will do what we can to the best of our ability. One important thing we would want to mention is the Office of the Principal Scientific Advisor to the Government of India. That is an important body in India that really influences futuristic science and technology policy making in India. So what does this office do? What does this Principal Scientific Advisor do? So they focus on, they try to increase collaboration, right? Not just between different types of governments like central and state governments, but also between governments and other types of industries. They're future focused. So they're not just focusing on the science and technology that is available today, but they focus on future preparedness by looking at emerging domains of science and technology. There are different ministries in India that are involved in science and technology activities, such as the DRDO, or other institutes of research and excellence, such as the National Institute of Virology or the National Chemical Laboratory. So the PSA tries to foster collaborations between these two. Importantly, it tries to, get research out of the labs. So really trying to foster collaborations with industry. So how can we create an ecosystem that can lead to entrepreneurship and lead to this science actually translating into applied technology? And importantly, that technology should be able to deliver key critical solve socioeconomic challenges for sustainable growth. So these are some of the high level activities that India's Principal Scientific Advisor does. And just an example of some of the initiatives that they do to achieve this. So they have the Prime Minister's Science, Technology and Innovation Advisory Council. So they are the ones who are engaged in, planning out the policy for the future. And then there's the Empowered Technology Group, which are, more involved in the implementation of translating this very lab-based tech research into direct applications for the of technology. So these are two important aspects what the PSA does, and you can go on their website and take a look at that in detail. One specific aspect that what the PSA office of the PSA does is that they sponsor what are called science and technology clusters in India. So let's take a look at what these science and technology clusters are. So let's just watch this video, an overview of it. I hope everyone can hear this.
To take India on the path to realize Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi's vision of an Atmanirbhar Bharat, the Office of the Principal Scientific Advisor has taken concrete steps to bolster India's science and technology prowess. These efforts have taken shape in form of S&T clusters that enable collaboration for scientific research, technological innovation, and entrepreneurship between academic institutions, national and state research laboratories, relevant ministries and state governments, industry partners, and philanthropic organizations, international institutions of excellence. The S&T clusters is a major initiative under the Prime Minister's Science, Technology and Innovation Advisory Council, PM-STIAC, located in Delhi, Bengaluru, Pune, Hyderabad, Jodhpur, and Bhubaneswar. These clusters are creating structures, incentives, processes, and a culture to improve innovation efficiency and the overall return on investment in science. These financially self-sustaining clusters are fostering a culture of experimentation and also engaging general public in science outreach activities. This initiative is sure to transform India's S&T sector by cultivating and commercializing innovative technologies, taking India on the path of economic prosperity.
Okay, so that was an overview of the S&T clusters, and you can always go onto their website and do your own research and read more about them. Um, we mentioned that these structures are pretty recent. They were only formed in 2020, and importantly, they involve collaborations between the government and philanthropic institutions such as us, Jnana Prabodhini Foundation. And the goals of the objectives at these clusters are at three levels. So, and we'll walk through these three levels one by one. So beginning from creating a shared ecosystem at the very local level to becoming a regional solution provider, and eventually, really not limiting ourselves and setting our sights at a national and at an international level. So, so what does a shared ecosystem mean, right? And we'll Mrunmayi and Neeraja will share some of these aspects from their experiences at the G20. But one aspect of creating a shared ecosystem is that we often have, not just in India, in many places in the world, we have really high quality research that goes on, but it often takes places in its own silos. We have really cool people doing really cool things, but they do not often talk to each other or engage with each other. So creating a shared ecosystem would involve better cross communication between organizations while also preserving their internal independence and autonomy. The second and the third objectives of these science and technology clusters are about their outlook, that we not only want to provide local solutions, which is important, right? We need to provide a bottom-up grassroots solution to problems, because there are, especially in the social scientific world, there cannot be, massively scalable, generalizable solutions that will work everywhere in the world. What works in America will not necessarily work in India. What works in Patna might not necessarily work in Pune. So you need that local context to really provide targeted and useful solutions at the regional and local level. But at the same time, if you want to, be involved in global mega science projects or collaborate with international institutions, such as this project which Jnana Prabodhini did, where we collaborated formally with Carnegie Mellon University in the United States. And in the same project, we also have a memorandum of understanding with the PKC. So all of these fit within the objectives of these science and technology clusters. As they mentioned in the video, there are 6 current clusters in India, and we are lucky enough that one of them is located in Pune, where Jnana Prabodhini Foundation's parent organization, that is Jnana Prabodhini, is located. And that's what that brings us to the Pune Knowledge Cluster, right? Which is based in Pune. All of these clusters do leverage the local expertise that individual city possesses. So the Pune Knowledge Cluster was, really its formation was spearheaded by IUCA, for instance, and it is today its main office it's based in the University of Pune. We signed a memorandum of understanding with the Pune Knowledge Cluster. We went and visited them last year. So this is their office in Pune University. So those of you who are in India or in Pune, definitely go there, meet them, check them out what their work is doing. There's a lot of cool stuff and high quality research that goes on in India. So you should go and check it out, get involved in these activities. And these are Pune Knowledge Cluster's focus areas. They have 6 main areas. So there is big data and AI, and who doesn't focus, or who is not interested in big data and AI these days? There's general capacity building that might be infrastructural, that might be in terms of human resources and education and skill development, all types of capacity building, both in what we talk about, the hardware of a country, which involves its roads and its water and its sewers and its clean air, but also the software of a country, which is human resource development in terms of education and what kinds of skills are being provided. There's healthcare as well, so that will be what we'll be focusing on today. So healthcare is a big focus of Pune Knowledge Cluster, and they really contributed a lot during the COVID-19 pandemic. I already mentioned about capacity, how capacity building involves, proper sewages and toilets, but even more broadly, making sure that our rivers are clean, that our trees are clean, making sure that there isn't flooding in Pune, and dealing with making Pune resilient for all of the problems that we are going to be grappling with climate change in the future, that might be flooding or urban heat stroke. Those are also the focus areas that Pune Knowledge Clusters works on. And sustainable mobility, as urban growth explodes, as the population of Pune will increase, and there will be a larger and larger suburban sprawl from Chakan to Pimpri Chinchwad down south. We would really need to develop sustainable transportation options such as the metro or other flyovers. So these are the main areas that PKC focuses on. So you can go read about them. If you're interested in them, get involved with them and help your own city with these clusters. And if you're not in Pune, check out the knowledge clusters from your own city, and you can get involved with those. Okay, so now let's switching gears a little bit from the principal scientific advisor, which was at the level of India. Let's focus on the G20. So the G20 is an intergovernmental organization. So it involves, as you might have guessed, not surprisingly, 20 countries in the world, though it's strictly not 20 countries, it's 20, like it includes the European Union. So that's also represented there. India is represented in the G20, and this year India is the host of the G20. Of those of you who are currently in India, I don't think you would have missed the posters and the hoardings out there. And G20 emerged as a response to the 2008 financial crisis. So its origins are really as a premier forum for international economic cooperation in troubled economic times. But its scope is not restricted to economic cooperation. It works to address other major issues related to the global economy, climate change mitigation, and sustainable development. And it is a relatively representative, inclusive, and diverse organization in the sense it represents 85% of the world's economic output. It represents to over 2/3 of the world's population, over 3/4 of all of the international trade, and 80% of the global investment. So G20 does include the significant important countries in the world. And this is, a case where all of the institutions and bodies we've talked about right now sort of come together in a very nice yoga, or a Triveni Sangam in a sense. We have the Office of the Principal Scientific Advisor, we have the Pune Knowledge Cluster, and we have the G20 event. And they last week organized what are called these Chief Science Advisors Roundtables, and they had a specific event on One Health, Disease Surveillance and Pandemic Preparedness. It was held in IISER-Pune, and that's what we'll be talking about in like the second half of this segment. We just have about half an hour left in our session today. The G20 Science Advisors Roundtables, it has 4 main agenda points. So the first agenda point was opportunities in One Health for better disease control and pandemic preparedness. So that's what we'll be talking about today. But there were other aspects as well, which we might not be able to touch upon as much today, but they're definitely relevant. So it involves, synergizing global efforts to expand access to scholarly scientific knowledge, right? pandemics and climate change are not going to be restricted to knowledge borders. The COVID-19 pandemic was a global one. So we need to be able to synchronize and communicate at a global scale. The representation of countries and diseases should not just be the ones that occur in rich, industrialized and educated first world countries, but in other countries as well. So many times there are neglected tropical diseases which do not get that much attention. So that is where that diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility in science and technology plays a role. And of course, this dialogue should be action oriented. So it should not just be, all talk, no action. So how do all of these policy initiatives directly translate into actual impact and action? So these are the 4 agenda points of the G20 CSR this year. We participated. Mrunmayi from our team, she presented a poster at G20. So it was a very big occasion for us at Jnana Prabodhini Foundation. So we are very proud of our team and for Mrunmayi for going there and presenting this. So we'll hear from her in just in a few minutes. But let's take a video of what, just a nice summary of what happened there. Some of you might have seen this video, but let's just take a look at our video again. Hey, so that was just a highlight, and shout out to our social media team for really creating a nice video of our participation at the G20. So we have Mrunmayi, who presented the poster. So she's on the left, and we also have Neeraja Dashaputre, Dr. Neeraja Dashaputre. She also was kind enough to help out. So she's the Chief Technical Officer at IISER-Pune. So she'll also be sharing a couple of brief thoughts after Mrunmayi has a go. And this was the poster that we presented there. So I'll just give you a brief overview of what we presented. So in this poster, we combined conventional and frugal, that is cost-effective methods to estimate COVID-19 related excess deaths. And the problem or the knowledge gap we were really trying to address is that there was no COVID-19 related excess death estimate for Pune, and frugal methods or cost-effective methods to get high quality data in low resource settings are limited. And therefore our goals were to estimate COVID-19 related excess deaths for Pune, to provide that first ever estimate for Pune, and to see if we can complement conventional expensive methods with cost-effective, frugal, non-traditional methods, and see if all of these methods sort of work together. We used three methods to estimate excess deaths. So there was a conventional method, which was statistical and epidemiological modeling. So we used three models: the Farrington-Salvarius algorithm, an over-dispersed Poisson model, and a simple average model. And we also used two frugal methods, which the first one, it is based on what we call in behavioral economics, revealed preferences of people, how people behaved in the real world. So it was the discrepancies between the death compensation claims that people filed during COVID and the actual mortality figures. And the third frugal method we tried was what we call in behavioral economics people's stated preferences, or their psychological preferences. So we used the wisdom of crowds method, where we gathered people's collective cognitive estimates, and we asked people their estimate about excess deaths in Pune. And what we found is that all of these estimates from our multiple methods converged. And they told us that over the course of the first and the second wave in Pune, from March 20 to December 2021, there were about 15,000 excess deaths in Pune, which translates to about 1.7 times more deaths than the official reported COVID-19 figures. And importantly, estimates from these multiple methods converged. They were within the margins of error of each other. Now, that is all that I'll tell you about this paper. We had presented these findings in detail in our webinar from last October, where Dr. Mashelkar was a chief guest. So that's available on a YouTube channel. So go and watch it. We can also send you the poster which Mrunmayi presented, and we have written this up as a paper for publication. It's currently under review at PLOS Global Public Health. And we have almost 20 authors in this from JPF Analytics, including high school students. This is a massive team collaboration with people from 3 countries with affiliations including IITs, including IISER, Caltech, Carnegie Mellon, University of California, Berkeley. So if you want to get involved with Jnana Prabodhini Foundation as a volunteer, do reach out to us. And because we are also working on more papers and research in the future. So you can go and check out these details here. Furthermore, our presentation was not the only thing that happened at this conference. There were many other things that happened at this conference. It had like a phenomenal chief guest. Like if you know anything about the life sciences, the biological sciences, you would have been fanboying, or like you would have been starstruck at the kind of people that were present there. We had people such as Dr. L.S. Shashidhara, who has the Bhatnagar Puraskar. We had Dr. Soumya Swaminathan, who was the chief scientist at the WHO before. We had people like Dr. Gagandeep Kang, and these are like really like amazing star names in the life sciences. So we had their keynote speeches. We had presentations by other universities. We were not the only ones who presented there. So there were people from the IITs. We had a poster from Ashoka University, and we also had a discussion section at the end where other local stakeholders such as BJ Medical College, Johns Hopkins Pune, the National Institute, the Serum Institute of India, and other institutions were also represented here. So we will not watch this entire video because, as you can see, it's almost 5 hours, but it is available on YouTube. So if you're interested, go and watch the entire Chief Scientific Advisors Roundtable event. You'll get a lot of insight about how science and policy making, cutting edge science and policy making in India works today. But to spare you the trouble of watching a 5-hour video, we have the 5 main takeaways available for you. So the 5 main takeaways from this event were that we really need to focus on international cooperation for pandemic preparedness. COVID was not the last pandemic we are going to see. And as the world changes, there is going to be a pandemic sooner rather than later. And we don't want to be caught on the unawares like were we in COVID. There should be better partnerships across private and public sectors as part of the One Health approach. So we'll mention that really briefly in a second, what the One Health approach means. And importantly, there should be multidisciplinary approaches to disease surveillance, right? You should not just be focusing on a traditional approach. So it should not just be, say, sero surveys. It should not just be wastewater surveillance. It should not just be, like public surveying. It should not just be the testing of migratory birds. It should be all of these things and many, 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 many more things put together. And that needs robust and standardized methods of data collection and intelligent data sharing systems. So you need a data infrastructure where all of these data should be put into big place and they should be able to share. So these infrastructures have to be built. They don't, in Marathi we say, झाडावर नाही लागत असे data infrastructures. They have to be created. And finally, you really need a high level genomic capability. So in COVID-19, these PCR tests, right? You need a lab which can run PCRs. Those of you who are in the life sciences, you would have run PCRs in lab. I've run PCRs in labs before. So you need skilled individuals who can run PCRs. You need the machines to do PCRs and all other sorts of genomic surveillance. Those of you who know about PCR involves, like, you have a probe, like you have a known reference DNA segment that you are comparing to, but for all of unknown diseases and unknown vectors, you don't know what you're looking for. So you need robust genomic sequencing methods that can allow you to identify diseases and even develop the vaccine quickly. If we had not had a robust genomic sequencing capability and sharing capability, we would not have developed the COVID vaccine in record time. So these were just some of the main themes at the event. So I'll just end with this last slide of what One Health means, which really, ties together all of these things which we've been talking about. That when you're talking about health, that you really need to not just focus on human health, not just look at animal health, and not just look at the environmental health, but look at all of these things together. So JPF's IBRETA group has had a great series of events where they look at all of the different aspects of health. So you can check out their videos on our YouTube channel as well. But at an individual level, it involves, our own diet, our food security. When you're looking at animals, it involves, how diseases might be transferred from different animals, be it domesticated livestock or bats, say in the case of COVID, or antibiotic resistance, antimicrobial resistance is a huge problem that we are seeing. So especially with antibiotic resistant TB, tuberculosis, that is a big healthcare challenge that the world is going to be seeing, especially in low resource countries where people might not necessarily go to their primary healthcare provider or their doctor for consultation. They might just go to their local pharmacy or their compounder, and they just buy over-the-counter tablets, and which might not be necessarily prescribed. So that's an important component. And then there's environment as well, right? The more we have deforestation and animal-human biodiversity loss, the more the chances of animal-human conflict are going to increase, and the more or animal-human contact are going to increase, and the more the chance of what we call pathogenic spillover is going to increase, right? If humans will come into, and especially with a lot of the new industries that are coming, right? We call them green technologies, but the metals that we need, cobalt, be it lithium, be it nickel, the mines for these are based in countries like Congo, like Bolivia, like Malaysia and Indonesia, which are equatorial countries with forests. So biodiversity loss is going to necessarily inevitably increase because of the green technological revolution, paradoxically, and a side effect, collateral damage of that will be this biodiversity loss. The final component is the social determinants and population movement. So that's again something which we have really looked at in the past in our knowledge, attitudes, and practices surveys, where we are looking about what people's perceptions are about their pandemic, what their social network sizes are, how much people interact with other people in their network. Are our social networks very segregated, or is there intermixing between networks? All of these are necessary to be integrated to develop a One Health model for successful pandemic surveillance and preparedness. So with that end, for the last segment, I will turn it over to Mrunmayi. So Mrunmayi, yeah, can you, and I will stop my sharing my screen, and maybe Mrunmayi, you can turn on your camera, because uh, so yeah, tell us your experience, what at G20, and now this segment we don't need to restrict ourselves to English. आपण इंग्लिश आणि मराठीच्या मिक्सर मध्ये फ्री फ्लोईंग कॉन्व्हर्सेशन ठेवू शकतो, आणि बोलता बोलता लोकांना जे क्वेश्चन्स असतील विदिन द चॅट, वी ऑल्सो हॅव युट्यूब वरनं लोक लाईव्ह स्ट्रीम वर जॉईन झालेले आहेत. सो प्लीज पोस्ट युअर क्वेश्चन्स इन द युट्यूब लाईव्ह स्ट्रीम एज वेल. And yeah, over to you, Mrunmayi.
Thank you. Namaskar, मी Mrunmayi. First of all, I would like to thank the team for giving this opportunity. जसं अभिषेक म्हणला, 2 आठवड्यापूर्वी या कॉन्फरन्समध्ये मला आपल्या टीमला रिप्रेझेंट करायला चान्स मिळाला. पोस्टर प्रेझेंटेशन बद्दल मी एक सांगेन की वेळ फार कमी असतो, हार्डली 1 मिनिट मिळतं आपल्याला. एवढं जे आपण आतापर्यंत काम केलंय, जवळजवळ 2 वर्ष, ते लोकांना सांगणं तेवढ्या वेळात, त्यांचे प्रश्न असतात ते जाणून घेऊन परत त्यावर उत्तर देणं. पण लोकांचा रिस्पॉन्स खूप छान होता. पीपल आर रिअली इंटरेस्टेड इन आवर वर्क. त्यांचे प्रश्न पण खूप चांगले होते. मोस्टली लोकांनी विचारलं की हे जे तुम्ही मॅथमॅटिकल नंबर्स काढलेत, एस्टिमेट काढलाय, त्याचा उपयोग काय? कोविड इज ऑलरेडी डन, सो व्हॉट इज द यूज इन एस्टिमेटिंग समथिंग दॅट इज ऑलरेडी डन? सो जेव्हा मी आपले यूज केसेस सांगितले की फॉर हा जो एस्टिमेट आहे, वी कॅन यूज दिस फॉर फर्दर, पुढे पॅन्डेमिक्स येऊ शकतात, बाकी काही नॅचरल डिझास्टर्स असतील, हे जे आपण नॉलेज घेतलंय आतापर्यंत, वी कॅन यूज दिस गोइंग अहेड. की आता आपले एस्टिमेट्स आले की वी नीड 10,000 ऑक्सिजन सिलेंडर्स. सो व्हॉट वी हॅव एस्टिमेटेड इज an excess death undercount factor of 1.5, right? So instead of keeping 10,000 oxygen cylinders ready, you would keep 15,000. So हे जेव्हा त्यांना त्यांच्या नेहमीच्या उदाहरणांमध्ये सांगतो, इट्स व्हेरी इंटरेस्टिंग. त्यांचे क्वेश्चन्स वगैरे, वी ऑल्सो गेट आयडियाज व्हॉट वी कॅन वर्क ऑन गोइंग फॉरवर्ड. सो ह्याच्यानंतर आय वुड लाईक टू शेअर सम ऑफ द की टेकअवेज फ्रॉम द कॉन्फरन्स. आता अभिषेकनी बरेच पॉइंट्स त्यातले कव्हर केलेत, सो मी प्रयत्न करते परत गोष्टी ओव्हरलॅप होणार नाही. पण G20 कॉन्फरन्सचं टायटल होतं वन हेल्थ, डिसीज सर्वेलन्स अँड पॅन्डेमिक प्रिपेअर्डनेस. सो वन हेल्थ बद्दल आपण बोललो की एखादा आउटब्रेक हा पॅन्डेमिक बनायला फार वेळ लागत नाही हल्ली. आत्ताचं ग्लोबलायझेशन आणि इज ऑफ ट्रॅव्हल इतका रॅपिड आहे की या पुढे एखादा एपिडेमिक पॅन्डेमिक मध्ये बदलायला जास्त वेळ लागणार नाही. आता कोविडचा स्प्रेड जेवढा होता 1-2 महिन्यात आपल्या देशात आला, त्याच्यापेक्षा कदाचित जास्ती कमी वेळ आपल्याला ह्याच्या पुढे असू शकतो. सो टॅकलिंग any public health burden should be a global combined effort based on collective knowledge and effective resource management. Countries should come together and invest in the public health sectors, and especially in the food, water safety, pollution, wastewater management, and as Abhishek mentioned, antimicrobial resistance. So this includes joint responses, sharing of databases and surveillance findings to find the root causes as well as any links between them. आपल्याला माहिती आहे की पॅन्डेमिक आउटब्रेक्स किंवा एपिडेमिक्स हे सगळे कम्युनिटीशी रिलेटेड आहेत. देर इज ऑलवेज अ फर्स्ट केस, अ केस झिरो. सो ऑन वन हँड वी हॅव managing the spread effectively, getting prompt help, having resistant and resilient healthcare systems. But what I feel is more important is to have an alert system. So getting a head start in catching the initial cases and signaling a potential epidemic is mm, is important, because time is very important while dealing with any disaster, natural or in this case public health disasters. So this is where surveillance comes into picture. So disease surveillance is an ongoing process which includes sample collection, its analysis and interpretation. It can be in form of sero surveys where we collect samples, blood samples, etc., or it can be the genomic surveys, which deals with mapping of genomic sequences. Past case studies have shown that effective surveillance has given at least a couple of weeks of head start in identifying the outbreaks. We have seen this especially with typhoid or SARS-CoV-2. Uh, in these cases, identifying the disease in the population is very hard. The symptoms are not readily distinguishable from the common flus. So here is where surveillance comes into picture. Right now, the surveillance studies that are being carried out in India include wastewater monitoring in cities, hospitals, as well as airplanes. Uh, Dangerous pathogens are identified and isolated. There is also environmental surveillance, which is a comparatively low cost or a scalable alternative, where bird droppings, animal droppings are tested, animal blood is tested from zoo sanctuaries. This helps us monitor the animal-borne diseases like Nipah, KFT, to monitor the spillover diseases. And even something as simple as monitoring the sick leaves in schools can act as a surveillance alert system for epidemics. Uh, the next pandemic, or I would say the ongoing pandemic right now, is AMR, that is antimicrobial resistance. This is when microbes stop responding to the drugs that are administered. This is currently a very serious burden on our healthcare systems, as we are currently losing about one drug molecule every month. Many such surveillance studies are being carried out at the moment in hospitals, but hospitals data is just a tip of iceberg. People rarely go to the hospitals for routine infections. The main cause of AMR is this, that unsupervised and uncontrolled prescription of these antibiotics. Also, excessive use of antibiotics in poultry and animal husbandry, which then gets into our systems after consuming this meat, and a tendency of patients to give up on treatments doses midway. So there should be some checks and regulations put into place to monitor these. I work in a public health domain, and I am involved in a surveillance study. So I know this firsthand, that surveillance studies come with a lot of cost and time investment, and they produce a huge volume of data, which is hard to analyze. So to analyze this data quickly and effectively is the need of hour. And due to the rapid urbanization, this data gets old pretty quickly. There is in the, especially in the context of alert system, it's of little to no use working on couple of months old data if we are dealing with pandemics or epidemics. So the focus is on utilizing the data effectively and converting this data into insights and into action items and strategies, which brings me to the last point of the conference, which was pandemic preparedness. So based on our past experiences, certain steps are already being taken to equip our nation if another tragedy hits us, be it accidental, natural, or intentional. Dealing with shortages of either oxygen tanks, hospital beds, cremation systems, or sanitation equipment beforehand, it will require effective forecasting of the burden, and building sound infrastructure, training the manpower, and having good primary healthcare system will be the base for prompt resources. This was a truly informative conference. It's always great to hear the experiences of people who have worked on the field, especially in such crises. Our team has a lot of scope for collaborations. There is a lot of data that is being generated, but not many people are available to put in the hours to clean and analyze the data and to produce reliable results. So I'm looking forward to work on such pressing issues in public health. And once again, thank you for giving me this platform to share my thoughts. And it was a pleasure to represent JPF in such a esteemed conference. Thank you.
That's great. That's great, Mrunmayi. Can you just tell us what you do? You briefly mentioned what you do in your day-to-day work, but
Yes. I'm in Johns Hopkins, India. I work as a biostatistician, and I also work in the clinical trial unit for 5 sites in India under this company. So right now I'm working on especially AMR project, where we are working on this surveillance of antimicrobial resistance in CRO organisms, carbapenem resistance to be specific.
very cool, very cool. Maybe we should have an entire session where you can tell us about your work. But thank you for sharing your insights, Mrunmayi. आणि खूप मस्त झालं जाऊन तोडलंस तिथे. So best. आता let's turn to Neeraja Dashaputre. Dr. Neeraja Dashaputre. Hello, Tai.
Okay.
And
Yes, first of all, stop calling me Tai. It makes me feel very old. But it's a wonderful experience to just get connected with all of you, if I can say. I really, I'm a newbie, if I may call, to this group of JPF Analytics, and thank you for including me.
can you
to be a
introduce
part.
yourself? Sorry.
Yeah. Hello.
You introduce yourself properly.
Yes. Hi, I'm Neeraja. I am a student of Jnana Prabodhini, and by profession, I'm currently the Principal Technical Officer, Education at IISER-Pune. I look after 2 or 3 main portfolios of IISER, one of them being the actual curriculum and various courses, mapping them, figuring out which courses to launch, which collaborations to do with international universities, and so on and so forth. The second portfolio is actually outreach and teacher training, where we deal with a lot of college teachers and school teachers, and run the national schemes. So these are either schemes like Rashtriya Madhyamik Shiksha Abhiyan, or you can say the Inspire Manak scheme. So these are big educational schemes that the government launches, and we look forward to their implementation in various districts, sometimes in different states as well. So it was a wonderful experience being at the conference with all of you. I was just at the right place at the right time, maybe. Mrunmayi did a fantastic job of presenting the research, but I would like to congratulate the whole team because, as I said, ours was the only presentation that was not a part of anyone's graduate studies or anyone's research for that matter. It was one research output that was generated by a collaborative effort of multiple different people coming together, multiple different researchers coming together just out of interest or just out of goodwill. So that I think was the highlight for me, because all other presentations, if you see, they were because it was a part of someone's research. But I would like to say that keep this wonderful work, keep it up. I look forward to seeing various other, projects and various other presentations by you all. I know we talk mainly of health, and how the knowledge clusters are generating huge amount of data in health. But having worked with PKC on education domain, I can tell you that there is a huge scope in education. So for example, when the pandemic was going on, we did surveys on effect of COVID and the learning gap because of the school lockdowns, and effect of COVID in general on education. So there is a huge data in that domain as well. PKC is working also with citizen science projects. So there is this 1 million galaxy project wherein a lot of data is getting collected, where they are training citizens to collect data, to upload it at a central portal, and there is going to be need to analyze that data as well. Also, in the case of environment, so you did talk about road infrastructure and other things. There is also a lot of work going on in sapling plantation. So different saplings around Pune. There's this Connect Tree project that they're running, wherein people can literally report how many saplings are surviving, which saplings are surviving, in order to promote the reforestation of the Pune area. And also the Happiness from Greenery project. So all of these projects where they are really putting the maps, GI maps, and figuring out where the vegetation needs to be restored. So as I can say, it's a wonderful group that has come together for a greater good. Keep up the good work. I look forward to hearing more from you guys. All the best. Hello?
Yes, thank you, Neeraja Tai. Great, great. Maybe we have one question on YouTube. Yeah, so we our findings showed that results were underreported by a factor of 1.7. Did we go into the reasons for any of these reporting? No, we unfortunately did not go into the reasons for all of these underreporting factors, because that is out of the scope of our paper. And we cannot know just by analyzing the data from the statistical models alone what the reasons were. So that would probably be something for a future paper. So thank you for your question on YouTube. Yeah, I think we are coming to a good endpoint. One question which I had for Neeraja Thai again. I'm sorry, I just keep calling you Thai, but it is, what advice would you give to someone who is in high school right now, आता शाळेत 11वी 12वीत आणि तुम्हाला रिसर्च मध्ये जायचं आहे पुढे, तर तुम्ही काय सांगाल त्यांना? Any word of advice?
Okay, so it's a very broad question, but research करायचा, I think a couple of key skills that one should have. One is, of course, data literacy that we are together talking about today, because in any research you are going to generate data, you are going to have to analyze it. So one part is, of course, data literacy. Second is communication skills. Which again, whatever you have analyzed, how to communicate it effectively to a larger audience. So these are some of the skills. I mean, we can talk about the 21st century skills and the 4 C's that people have talked about, creativity and other domains. But since we are talking about data today, let's focus more on, even being aware of the kind of data that we generate, being aware of its implications, and how to communicate it. I think right now we'll just focus on that. Yeah.
No, that's great. That's a very great suggestion that you gave, Neeraja Tai. And I think as someone as JPF Analytics' team, I think that's a definite big pitch that we can give, that it doesn't matter which field you're working on, whether you're a biologist, whether you're an economist, a psychologist, you need to learn data, you need to learn how to code. So know how to deal with data, and check out our other activities at Analytics where we can help you get involved in data. I will mention another point which Neeraja Tai said, which is really really critical to all of this, and it is that this was all done from a volunteer basis. One of the key strengths of what we do is it's a completely volunteer driven organization, and we are able to do this. We are able to contribute and give our skill sets back because our team is, let's face it, pretty privileged, but there are many people not privileged out there. As I'd mentioned at the beginning, all of you might have been following what's going on in Manipur right now. You might be angry and outraged, but one way to contribute to that, to support the education of Manipuri students, is through JPF's Learn India campaign. So you can go take a look through that. That support will really help drive projects such as this one today and drive our motivation to participate in other such conferences. So does anyone have any other questions, any final questions? You can post them in the Zoom chat as you're thinking of them. If not, I think आपण प्रार्थना घेऊयात आणि conclude करूयात. So we would, I guess, all keep your phones on mute, but मी प्रार्थना सांगेन आणि मग यानंतर आपण थांबूयात. ओके. की घेतले व्रत नहे आम्ही अंधतेने लब्ध प्रकाश इतिहास निसर्ग माने जे दिव्य दाहक म्हणोनी असावयाचे बुद्ध्याची वाण धरिले करी हे सतीचे. भारत माता की जय. नमस्ते. 1 2 3. ओके, आपण on this note, we can end this conversation, and we'll see you next month for another education and outreach session organized by Jnana Prabodhini Foundation's analytics team.